Ano ai ko ka ko mau mea ho'o ki pala ea. Amen, mea hano hano. Ke ho'o hiva hiva ia nei ma ko la ea. E hui pui ka vai vai. O ko ka ko mau kupuna la ea. Ia hi pu'u ia ka ko I ka lokahi. I ka nalu I mia ka ko mai kahi ki mai la. Me ke aloha no ka ko a pau. Me ke aloha no ka ko a pau. Greetings to our hosts, to the University of Hawai at Manoa, and to our dignitaries and many guests. We are honored to join in the tradition of our kupuna that binds us in unity. We are the waves that come from many shores, but we come with love for all. Such are the sentiments of Dr. Edith Mackenzie, who composed the chant of welcome that began us on our journey. And I have to apologize because that's the first time I ever did that in public, so I'm a little nervous. But, So my name is Noelle Kahanu, and I'm with the American Studies Department here at the University of Hawai at Manoa. And I have the privilege of serving as your guide for this evening. And I promise you it will be an evening that is enlightening and engaging and inspiring. Addressing us next will be the president of our University of Hawaii system, and he is also our interim chancellor here at Manoa, David Lassner. And he will be followed by Professor Robert Perkinson, who will introduce our keynote speaker for the evening, Ai Jen Poo. After the keynote, Robert and I will take questions from the audience for about half an hour or so, which would bring us to end at about 8 p.m. So with that, I will call upon President Lassner.
Aloha and welcome. We're so glad to have you here with us this evening at UH Manoa. Ai Jen Poo is our 2017 Dan and Maggie Inouye Distinguished Chair in Democratic Ideals. This chair was established with the blessing of the senator in 2005 and was generously endowed by many UH donors and organizations. And we thank those of you who are able to join us here this evening for this event and see the value of your investment in UH Manoa and in Hawaii. I want to thank and recognize a couple of people. Kenny Inouye is here with us somewhere. Yay, Kenny. Son of the Senator, Mayor Caldwell, and Regent Emerita Donna Tanoe. Governor Abercrombie and Dr. Nancy Caraway somewhere. And Vice Chair of the Board of Regents, Randy Moore. And I think I'll stop there. Past recipients of the Inouye Chair, as we shorten it conveniently to call it, have ranged from acclaimed poet W.S. Merwin, a Maui resident, we're very proud of him, Citibank Chair and UH Manoa former student Richard Parsons, filmmaker John Sayles, and last year we had Angela Davis, who lit us on fire. I'll be brief, but these are anxious times. I think all of you here know that. It's a unique time in American history, and it's challenging to democratic ideals for almost all of us, no matter what our beliefs are, and our commitment to democratic ideals has never been more important. Tonight, we're going to hear from one of the country's leading change agents, and Robert will introduce her, but I hope he didn't have this one in, but she was recognized as one of the 150 fiercest women in the country. That's my favorite. But she's leading change. She's dedicated to healing wounds, seeking justice, and really bringing us all together. She was our commencement speaker in December, and it was amazing for everyone present. So let me stop there and invite up Dr. Robert Perkinson to introduce her.
Aloha. As David was saying, we gather here this evening at an unusually portentous and anxious moment in American history. Many of us in Hawaii, which is an overwhelmingly democratic state, greeted the election of our new president with disbelief, even dread. That same constituency is opening their news apps these days with trepidation. One day brings news of a refugee and religious ban, another day proposals for massive budget cuts to the EPA, the elimination of the East-West Center, cuts to research that supports higher education, a retreat from US commitments to mitigate climate change. There's no unanimity, even in Hawaii, of public opinion, of course, but many of us, I think, are consuming the news these days with indigestion. We feel angry, we feel afraid. But there are better alternatives than mourning or hiding. And the best of them is probably organizing. There's nothing set about our future, after all. And the biggest pivots in American history have not been set in motion generally by politicians of whatever stripe, but by social movements, by people coming together and making change in mass and in motion. And there are signs, I believe, that we are at the beginning of another of those moments. People are moving. We see it at the Women's March and town hall meetings, and we see it even here, that unprecedented numbers of people are tuning in and turning out. We don't know, but it may be that we are at the beginning of one of those historic movement-driven pivot points in history. And if that is the case, I believe it is the case, then Ai Jen-Poo is truly one of the most vital voices of our time. She's the director of the National Domestic Workers Alliance, which aims to improve the working conditions and benefits and dignity and power of 2.5 million nannies and housekeepers and caregivers across the US. In this work, she has organized and built power and achieved victories among a dispersed and disempowered workforce that skeptics thought could not be mobilized. She's the director of a smaller but even more ambitious campaign, Caring Across Generations, that seeks to increase access to quality long-term care, both for young children as well as aging adults, and also to make care work, which is one of the fastest growing employment sectors in the US economy, dignified and sustainable work. In these arenas, against incredible odds, Ai Jen and her team have achieved landmark victories, including a domestic workers' bill of rights in Hawaii, and there's another piece of legislation that she'll discuss, a kapuna care piece of legislation that's advancing in the legislature here right now. For this work in aggregate, for her innovation and effectiveness as an organizer, she has been recognized as a fearless woman, as David was saying, as one of the 100 most influential people in the world by Time magazine. She's received a MacArthur Genius Fellowship. She's been profiled in the New York Times and the Washington Post, the Star Advertiser. All of this is to say that in the field of change making, Ai Jen is really a star. And I think as you hear her, and if you have the pleasure of getting to know her as I have, you'll see why. She has a kind of commitment and doggedness and determination and indignation and passion that you would expect of a movement driver and as a political advocate and activist. but she also has a kind of thoughtfulness and eloquence and warmth and empathy and balance that gives her added power. She is fierce, but does not succumb to the vile passions that can erupt in every fight. And in this age of anger, she indeed organizes with love, which I think at this moment is precisely what we need. Please welcome Ai-jen Poo.
Aloha. Aloha. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And thank you, President Lassner, Robert, and Noel, who have been such incredible hosts to me here and made me feel like family. I'm truly honored to be this year's Dan and Maggie Inouye Chair in Democratic Ideals. I've had a great time teaching with Robert, and just want to say a huge thank you to the deans here, to UH Manoa, to all the teachers, the professors who I've taught classes with, to the Inouye family, particularly Ken Inouye. This has been an incredible opportunity to soak in inspiration from students, an incredibly diverse, vibrant student body, which you should feel so proud of here. And the local activists that I've met with, some of whom are here tonight, who have taught me so much about what it means to make change with aloha, which is what I'm going to talk about tonight. So before the election, I was really excited to spend a semester here at UH to get away from my day-to-day work of building our CARE movement, to have some space to reflect and to write and to think. And then the election happened, and my world turned upside down. My workforce is the single workforce with the largest concentration of undocumented immigrants of any sector. So I did some deep contemplation about whether it made sense for me to come and take time away. And in the end, I decided to come, but for different reasons. Less to get away and write, but the idea of taking a position focused on democratic ideals was the draw. It took on new meaning for me. And while I've had a great time engaging with students and doing some reflection with them, the biggest gift has actually been the opportunity to reflect broadly on American democratic ideals, specifically from the great state of Hawaii. Hawaii holds a particular place in the landscape of American political life and history, and I believe it is a place full of lessons that the rest of us throughout this country need to learn now more than ever. Our democracy, I think as we all know intuitively and feel every day, is facing an existential crisis. It's not just that we elected a president that I disagree with on just about everything, but rather this administration, his cabinet of billionaires, and the alignment of extremist leadership in our federal government threatens the core values and institutions that give meaning and life to democracy in the United States. It's an existential crisis. And don't get me wrong, it's not that I think our democracy was perfect before by any means. In fact, I subscribe to the Vincent Harding school of thought. Dr. Harding, civil rights leader, used to say, "I am a citizen of a nation that has yet to come into being." I've spent my life trying to bring the nation we deserve into being, and have no illusions about our shortcomings and our challenges here. But at some fundamental level, I am a believer in the American people, in our capacity to make progress, and our ability to one day create the vibrant, multiracial democracy in this country, one based on fairness and sustainability, dignity, and care that we all so deserve. And it's an incredibly challenging project if you think about it. My good friend Heather McGee, who runs an organization called Demos, often says that the United States is the most ambitious experiment in democracy in the world. Because if you think about this country and its history, we have the First Nations, the Native peoples who were first, and then the first generations of migrants, and then Africans who were enslaved and brought here in the transatlantic slave trade, and then all the waves of migration, immigration from every nation and every culture since. And then we are told that we are one. It's a humbling proposition. But nevertheless, every generation and the social movements of those generations have sought out and made progress. Our democracy, however imperfect, is and has been the context by which the people, the very good people of this nation, have shaped its future. And that is why I believe that we are in a moment of existential crisis. I truly believe that if we do not take serious, focused action to save our democracy and really the soul of the country, our dreams of the nation we deserve for ourselves and our children and our grandchildren, and the sustainable environment we need will disappear. So no, this is not a politics as usual moment. The good news is that millions of people have awakened to this reality and have become activated in unprecedented ways. Nearly 5 million of us marched, many of us wearing pink hats, all around the world on January 21st. And the women and men who marched actually continue to take action despite the predictions that the march momentum would fade. The same women who organized more than 700 sister marches around the country have proceeded to organize thousands of huddles or house parties, participated in a Day Without a Woman on March 8th, and created the largest celebration of International Women's Day in the history of this country. During February recess, thousands of people showed up again and again at congressional town hall meetings, demanding answers to questions about the future of our healthcare. Every Tuesday, now renamed Resist Tuesdays, thousands of people take action at congressional offices and at Trump buildings. And on Sundays, in the evening, between 10 and 60,000 people join teletown hall meetings to talk about what's next in the resistance. They actually broke the Guinness Book of World Records for the most number of people on one phone call together. People are in motion in ways that organizers like me dream of. So the resistance movement is blossoming, and the question is whether we can build the power to actually win. And you might ask, what does winning mean? Well, to me, winning means defeating hate and winning progress, winning hearts and minds, winning elections, and winning, ultimately, bold policy that will make life better in America for everyone, especially the most invisible and vulnerable among us. So I'm working with a group of leaders around the country to figure out how we win. Early on, we talked about the need to have a rhythm to our resistance work and our movement building. Marches and protests will not sustain us forever. We know that, nor will they build necessarily what's needed to win. They are important. We need to keep showing up, but we actually need organizing, as Robert said. And not just organizing against the threat, but organizing for what we need. As we oppose the hateful, divisive rhetoric and policies with resolve and defiance, we must also propose real alternatives that address the pain points facing people across the country in the most unequal economy in generations. This is not a moment for incremental solutions like those that dominate our legislatures. The people are hungry for more, and they are demanding it. They want courageous leadership. They want big ideas, big solutions to meet the challenges of our time. So we're cultivating a rhythm of resistance, of opposition and proposition, oppose and propose, with courage. Courage in our defiance, courage in our solutions. It's one thing to try to stop someone or something from happening. It's one thing to try to turn people away from a particular agenda, but it's another thing entirely to try to turn people towards something, towards each other, to win people over, to lead the way forward. Particularly in this moment of chaos and confusion, leadership is critical. And we need to get clear really quickly as to what that leadership looks, sounds, and feels like, where it should come from. Where will it come from? It is for these reasons that I appeal to you tonight, good people of Hawaii. I believe that the people of this great state have precisely the experiences and perspective, past and present, that we need in order to shape the future we deserve in this country. In the muscle memory of the people and leaders of this state are the very experiences that should inform how we oppose, what we propose, and how we face this moment in America with courage. There are at least 3 important experiences that are deeply embedded in the muscle memory of the people of this state. Occupation of native Hawaiian lands, the migration and exploitation of workers in a plantation economy, and Japanese internment. The occupation of native Hawaiian lands, the migration and exploitation of workers in a plantation economy, and Japanese internment. These deeply painful, profound experiences have shaped every single community in this state, consciously and unconsciously. They are also the source of some important defining qualities of the land, culture, and people here. There are at least 3 qualities that I want to highlight that have been incredibly present for me here in my time here, and that I believe are crucial in this moment. The racial diversity and the global nature of the community here. The commitment to the role of government as an equalizer and protector of the common good, along with the commitment to institutions like unions that are important pillars of our democracy. The culture of aloha and Pacific generosity. The racial diversity of the state and cultural influences of both Native Hawaiian and immigrant cultures and the blending of culture and history inside of families even, are a source of tremendous strength and power. This is a state that is not afraid of diversity. Rather, it truly sees diversity as a strength. The values that every culture brings, including a culture of caring for our kupuna and our neighbors, serves as a critical counterweight to the fear and hate-mongering that we are seeing. It is because of this history that Hawaii historically has been a leader on issues like public education, labor rights, environment, healthcare, others. I believe that it is because of this history that Hawaii can and must step forward as a leader and a model towards progress once again for the entire country. I've had the great privilege and honor of working with leaders here in the state on policy issues since 2009, with Representative Roy Takumi, Dr. Nancy Caraway, and Governor Abercrombie on the Domestic Workers Bill of Rights, Hawaii was the second state in the country, the second after New York, to pass a Bill of Rights for domestic workers, ensuring this group of workers who had faced several generations of exclusion from some of the most basic labor laws had protections. Just last Friday, Representative Takumi gave a stunning speech on the floor of the House of Representatives about the injustice of racial exclusion that the domestic workers have faced. I've worked in dozens of legislatures around the country, and I will tell you, rarely do I see that type of courageous assertion of inclusion. Opposing racial exclusion, proposing a domestic worker Bill of Rights. Building on that work, I'm now working in the legislature on the Kupuna Caregiver Program. It is the first in the country universal care benefit to support our caregivers and to support the ability of our kupuna to live well in community. It is a groundbreaking program to invest in our care infrastructure. Invest in care as infrastructure, as a fundamental and valuable part of the fabric of our economy and our society. As the federal government threatens to take away health care for 20 million people, Senators Baker and Takuda and caregivers around the state are planning to make history by expanding family care support, opposing the threat to our health care, proposing the Kupuna Caregiver Program. In other states, we are years away from this kind of investment in the care infrastructure. Here, there's been a live discussion about long-term care policy for over 20 years. Caring for kupuna is a value that is deeply embedded in the culture here. Hawaii is years ahead of the game. And incidentally, getting ahead of the game will save the state hundreds of millions of dollars in the long run and save families from permanent crises. Just last week, the Attorney General of Hawaii was successful in stopping the Muslim ban. The first state to step forward and file a lawsuit with the full support of the governor and the legislature, Hawaii took its place in history in this moment. We will look back on this time, and that act of leadership will go down in history as defining. Opposing exclusions, proposing support for immigrant care workers. It's no accident that the Women's March was called by a retiree from Hawaii. You are the first responders for our democracy in crisis. It's no accident. And we need you to continue to respond and lead. Those of us who work for progress across the country, we are trying to move the country to understand that diversity is our greatest strength, not to be feared, that we can be different and still be one. You can help us. We're trying to recover lost ground when it comes to the role of government, that we need each other, and we need systems and institutions that equalize relationships between the powerless and the powerful. You can help us. We're trying to move the country to understand that we should take care of each other and our families, our elders, and our children. You can help us. This is just the beginning of what promises to be a very difficult time in our country with a lot of casualties. The truth is, there's a tremendous amount of pain out there: joblessness, homelessness, violence, addiction, disenfranchisement, incarceration. We are a nation as brilliant and as talented as we are that is struggling. But it is also a time of tremendous hope. Never before have I seen such widespread and everyday acts of solidarity and courage as what I'm seeing now. With the right leadership, we can leverage that motion for goals even greater than we had before November of 2016. For the last 20 years of my work, I've been exploring the role of love in building and sustaining social movements. I used to say that the most powerful force for change in the world is love. And I would compare great organizing campaigns to great love affairs because of the kinds of transformation that can happen within people, inside of us, between people. It transforms us, it transforms relationships in the midst of working together toward common goals. After a semester here, I think I will amend that statement and say that for this world we live in now, the force we need is aloha. Aloha is a force, sometimes defined to me as love, but deeply rooted in history, connected to the earth and the ocean. It assumes generosity. It is redemptive. It offers resilience and connection through many crises and joys of the human experience, through birth and death, through internment, migration, occupation, and exploitation. It helps us heal and do so in relationship to each other as one. It is what makes you respond first and do so with courage. And it may well be the force that saves us all. And that is certainly what I'm banking on. Mahalo.